I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Now, today we're reading from the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 4. Let's focus on verses 9 through 13. For I think God has displayed us, the apostles, in last place, like men condemned to die. And we have become a spectacle to the world and to angels and to men. We are fools for the Messiah, but you are wise in the Messiah. We are weak, but you are strong. You are distinguished, but we are dishonored. Up to the present hour, we are both hungry and thirsty. We are poorly clothed, roughly treated, and homeless. We labor, working with our hands. And when we are reviled, we bless. When we are slandered, we entreat. We are, even now, like the world's garbage, like the filth of all things. Well, so much for the word, faith, and prosperity doctrines, for all the so-called modern day apostles soliciting faith donations to support their opulent lifestyles. Paul gives insight as to the ministries and the lifestyles of the actual apostles. And for all those who preach that we should not speak forth negative things lest we curse ourselves, Paul was determined to describe things as they really were. He didn't sugarcoat things, shimmering blessings against the backdrop of a martyr's suffering. You see, the reason for Paul's instruction is that some men had already found a way to exploit the gospel for personal gain, and they did it by elevating themselves. And once you elevate certain men above others, well, then divisions within the body of Messiah, within the church, soon to follow. So, believers become known more for their systematic differences than they do for their brotherhood by faith in Jesus alone. And not only do such divisions affect the church at large, but they also greatly diminish our witness to the world. So for me, the church's damaged testimony is most evident when I'm in Israel. There are hundreds, by the way, of Christian denominations and divisions who all have their offices in Israel. Listening to Jewish non-believers, speaking of how Christians fight in the old city among themselves, well, that's just shameful. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Old Jerusalem is a good example. Its ownership and upkeep is shared by various competing strains of Catholicism, each of them trying to outdo the other. And it is all so contra to how Jesus prayed for unity of all believers just hours before he was crucified. Contra to elevating oneself, Paul tells us that God chose to display the apostles humbly. And that is the mark of greatness for a Christian leader is not how high they elevate themselves, but how well they submit to God's design of lowly humility. And this aligns perfectly with the Beatitudes section of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5. You should check that out. For all who seek the luxurious life of ministry, well, perhaps you should listen to Paul here. There are riches to be had, but mostly stored up in heaven. So we don't live for the here and now, we live for the there and then. I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. And Groundworks Ministries operates entirely through financial donations from faithful people just like you. And yes, we do need your monthly support, especially now. Donating is secure and it's easy at our website, groundworksministries.com. Another way to help is to tell people about us. You can share our podcast with friends and family. Share them on your social media, that's fine. Of course, you can always direct folks to our website, groundworksministries.com.